What up, YouTube fam? So today we're going to go over Dockerizing that Django application that we've been working on. That's going to allow us to really make it easier to deploy to anything that uses containers, which is kind of like the standard now. So yeah, let's just get into it. All right, so we got it pulled up here. I guess let's start by just making a Docker folder. We'll keep things, kind of separate here, make it a little cleaner. And with Docker, you always start with a Docker file. So we can start with, I think from Python 3.12. And then let's just go back. All right, that's not the right format. Let's see what the Python images are. I always forget the format off the top of my head. Oh boy, my internet's slow. Jeez, why can't I load Docker? Oh, well, this is unfortunate. All right, well, I do have another example, so I'm just going to go off of that. I think 3 might be the latest version. Yeah, we'll just do that. And we'll do Slim Bookworm. Bookworm is the latest version of Debian, so we'll just go with that. Let's just make sure that we got that working. Cool. So let's see. We are going to want to use poetry for the dependencies inside of the Docker image. And it gets a little interesting with how Docker and Python environments work inside of there. So let's just set some environment variables for Docker real quick. And let's see which version of poetry we're using. I think it's 1.8.3. Oh, 2. Okay, cool. And then what we want to do inside of the Docker image is install poetry using the poetry version that we specified there. All right. Cool, we got that working. So now we want to copy both of these into whatever directory we're working in Docker. It doesn't really matter at this point, but that's not going to work. I'll just show the error here. And you can see that it can't find it. And that's because we're working inside of this Docker folder instead of one folder back. So if we did that. That did not work. Let's see. What did it say? Oh, interesting. All right. Well, now we know that. So let's do this. How do we name the Docker file? So what? Why did that not work? Oh, okay. So Docker build, whatever that is kind of the context that you're building the Docker image in. So now let's just take a peek inside of it. We can see that we have the two files there. So now we'll do, we're actually going to create that virtual environment. We'll just specify Python 3 because that's what we're using. So that's going to create the virtual environment. And then we want to update the path inside of the Docker image to actually have that virtual env be first, and then whatever the rest of the path is. So we'll build this, and then we'll take a peek inside and see why. So we can see that this virtual environment path was set kind of ahead of it. If we look at, I think it's in here. Yeah. So we created this virtual environment that now has Python installed in it. And if we just did, if we ran poetry install, I think that should do it. It could conflict with any kind of system dependencies that are running in Slim Bookworm. So by creating this virtual environment here, using this path, when we do this poetry install, it's actually going to install the libraries into here instead of in here. So let's go ahead and do a build. No dev does not exist anymore. Do we have any dev dependencies currently? Yeah, so we have make docs as a dev dependency. So let's just go ahead and build it. Oh, duh. Go ahead and build it. And I do think I saw make docs in there, so we'll have to modify that. So now if we take a look at that, and then See, we can see that it installed it here and not in the not in here. It's going to be, it would be lib Python 3 and then site packages. And yeah, we don't have them in there. And we don't want them in there. These are kind of the system dependencies of Slim Bookworm. And just to play it safe, we created that virtual environment. So that's all done. Now we, let's see, we have that there. How do we ignore dev dependencies with poetry? Oh, okay. So let's exit. And then apparently there should be a without. Is there a... Oh, without groups to ignore. Geez. So we'll do dev. So now that should install everything except make docs. And that's important when we start adding other dev dependencies like PyTest or responses or Modo, and we'll get into all that eventually. But now if we ran that and we took a little look-see in the lib here for Python and then site packages, we can see that make docs are no longer there. And there are just much fewer dependencies that were installed. So, and that makes our Docker image smaller and faster to deploy. Don't really have to worry about it too much, but just for future thinking, it's good to know. So we have that working there. Let's see. Let's do a another copy. Actually, you know what? Let's set the work directory first. This is where our code will live. And now if we, built it again and then ran it, now we're working inside of this directory. And then let's do a copy of backend to there. And there we have it. So now that's running well. If we wanted to throw in a port mapping here, oop, missed one. Should work. And now if we went to localhost, and this is now running inside of the Docker image or Docker container that's currently running. And if we can take a look with Docker PS and see what we have running. So that's kind of cool. So that's all set up. That's kind of the start there. Now, we could basically more or less stop there with this and just run it with run server. We will add Gunicorn, but first let's, forgot to make a branch. So we'll just update that and we'll do a new branch off of that. Cool. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to set up a Docker compose file. And that's going to allow us to make this build a lot easier to kind of replicate just with one command. And as we start to add more services, which we will do, it'll just make it a little bit nicer, a little bit easier with just one command instead of having to spin up several Docker containers individually for things like a database or a cache or what have you. So let's just start with services, build. Let's specify a little bit. Docker file. There we go. So now if we ran you know what, let's just see if we can figure it out from this. Do. It's got to be here. File. Okay. So just did that though. I know what it's complaining about. So that should just be the Docker file. Now if we ran it, okay. Oh, here we go. So that's going to reference the parent directory as the context, meaning like work in that directory to build things or not. There we go. Cool. And if we cd'd into Docker and then just ran that should also work. Sweet. So we have that working. And now if let's add our command as that command that we ran. And let's define that port mapping that we had. And if we run docker compose up, we can actually see that it's working and we see the logs. So, and now if we do this, we can see that, and that's the name of that container. So let's change that. So still working. And now we have the name of the app. So that's pretty cool. So we got that working now. I think another thing that we'll want to do here is let's just go ahead and set up the database. So that will use an image of Postgres. And let's see if we can get to Docker Hub here. And I think I just had JavaScript disabled. Yeah, I did. So we have Docker here. Let's just do, how about Alpine? Yeah, let's do 17. Let's do this one. Yeah, because we're not going to be really doing a whole lot with that. We're not going to customize it really, and it's fine using Alpine. It's just a smaller image. So now let's go ahead and add the ports here for 5432, 5432. And I think we can set some variables here. There should be. Here we go. So let's set the environment. And we'll do Postgres user. And then Postgres DB as Silo app. And we'll copy these over. Oh, we'll copy all this over. And then we'll get our project set up to hook up to this database, and then we'll take a look inside the database. So that looks like that's working now. And if we open this up, we'll go ahead and remove this. We will add our data source. So since we have the mapping, we can connect to it locally. Apparently I did password for the user and password for the password. And then database is Silo app. Awesome. So we don't have much in there now, and that's because we haven't configured our Django project to kind of connect to that. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that might entail. That comes from, let's see here. There should be, yeah, databases. So you see how it was using SQLite before? We're going to set that up to use Postgres, and Django has nice documentation on it. Postgres connection. Oh, that's kind of nice. Django supports Postgres 13 and higher. Scicop G 2 is required, though the latest psychop-g is recommended. Oh, interesting. Okay, so let's go ahead and add that to our poetry project. All right, we'll have to rebuild that Docker image for the project because we just added a new dependency. Go ahead and change the default engine here. Yeah, we'll copy this. And then we'll change this name. Because it would be nice to, you know, be able to use both of them if we want. Don't have to, probably won't, but it is what it is. We will fill out all of this info here. So this is the name of the database. So this is going to be that Silo app DB, or nope, just Silo app. User password, and because we're running this in Docker, the way this works is we can use this as the host. So let's go ahead and cd into Docker again. All right. Let's see what happened here. Okay, so we actually, let's go back. There we go. Now we have the binary. Cool. All right. Looks like our app was loaded. Let's go here. Oh. Cool. So we do get that there. And now we should be able to run migrations. And when we run the migrations in the container, since it's connected to this database container, we'll actually see the tables populate here. Boom. And if we refresh this, we see all the tables. But now let's stop and then let's rerun it and see if the tables have persisted. It does look like they did. But if we did, so the app was just stopped. If we did Docker compose down, it removes them entirely. So if we spun it up and refresh this, we see that there are no tables there. So we'll go ahead and commit this because we've done a fair amount here. But what happens if we want to persist this database kind of data between, stopping and running that Docker compose down? So we actually need a volume here. And we can just name this that, I guess. And I'm not fully sure where Postgres stores its data. It's a file on the server. And we can just see here. Looks like it stores it there. So we do have two options. We can just store it, to a local folder, or we can use a Docker volume. Doesn't matter too much. So we don't see it there. So let's kill this. Let's run this again. And then let's run that migrate command. And now we should see the tables pop up here. And then stop it. And then if we ran this again, we should see this data persist. Cool. And if we look at the Docker volumes that we have, it's right there. So yep, let's do this again. Right there. So this will actually clear the data, or I guess not. All right, I thought I would. So looks like it didn't. That's good to know. That's pretty much it for setting that up. But as a bonus, let's kind of take a look at what we can do to try to back up this Docker volume data. How do we back up Docker volumes? Normally, if you want to back up a data volume, you run a new container using the volume you want to back up, then execute the tar command to produce an archive of the volume. To restore a volume with an existing backup, you can run a new container that mounts the target volume and executes the tar command to decompress the archive into the target volume. So let's do this. Just see what happens. Cool. So what if we just unzipped it? Untar, and it's going to be my backup. Oh, just tar. Okay, so oh, that's unfortunate. Is that in there? Ah, okay, so that is in there. Why did that not work? Create, oh, so what was the previous command here? XZ and then that. Let's just look it up. Oh, had to add one more. Oh, wait. Z compresses the file. Okay. XVZF. What's V? And then what's F? Oh. Okay, so we should have that in there, but we don't. So let's try that again. But what I want to do is run that with that. So why is nothing in there? Let's just try mounting it to a different folder. Okay. I don't know why that did that, but it did. Let's try this again, though. So now we should have that. All right, let's delete these. Yeah, why is there no data in there? Let's delete all of this and just start over. Okay. Am I like choosing the wrong volume? Okay. I have no explanation. Nope, but it's there now. So if we did that, now we should have it there. And then if we did that other tar command, that should, oh, here. How do I do the destination? Apparently it is C. So if I did this, there it is. there's our data. So those are kind of the commands that you can do to back up a Docker volume, which will be important when we get this deployed and we want to, back up our data, whether it's on like a daily occurrence, a weekly occurrence, or what have you. We'll probably do daily. We'll have to use those commands. So we are going to add those to our docs. Okay, and then we have this one to because I don't want to forget those. Those are just examples. It's not going to be like the best, but there we go. So we'll clean up the docs later, but it at least helps to just have it. And then let's go back to just copy this over. So let's drop into that DB container again. Which we can actually do with docker compose run or exec. We do have tar, so we can actually just run it with the database container itself, which is nice. So cool. Be looking forward to that. And we got that all set up, squared away. I think next time we'll kind of take a look at getting Gunicorn set up and maybe deploying this thing to a DigitalOcean droplet and kind of configuring a different prod Docker Compose. This one's really just for local. The Docker file will remain the same, should remain the same. And we'll go from there. So till then, catch you guys next time.